We are on the Book of Knowledge book. We left off at Where Madness Meets Medicine. Welcome to the Glore Psychiatric Museum, where people can view a lunatic box, a bath of surprises, and a human-sized gerbil wheel. Interested in the history of mental health care? Curious about what goes on in the minds of the clinically insane? A visit to the Glore Psychiatric Museum in St. Joseph, Missouri provides a shocking look at the profession's past. In many cases, what today appears to be a medieval torture device was, until recently, employed in the treatment of the mentally ill. Foreign objects. As far as medical museums go, a curator is fairly certain to strike gold when his or her featured attraction is a case of rusty nails retrieved from a woman's stomach. Nearly 1,500 objects, including safety pins and salt shaker tops, comprise the former intestinal contents of a mental patient who suffered from a form of allotriophagy. What a word. A bizarre desire to eat foreign objects. This is just a taste of what you'll find at the Glore Psychiatric Museum, which is housed in what was known as State Lunatic Asylum Number 2 when it opened in 1874. George Glore, a Time State mental health employee, founded the museum in 1968. Today, it featured replicas of a multitude of 16th, 17th, and 18th century treatment devices. The exhibit proved so perversely successful that it became a permanent fixture. This will only hurt a bit. Some items at the museum date back to a time when the mentally ill were treated more like prisoners than patients. Devices that originated with the hospital's late 19th century beginnings represent a dark age of psychiatric medicine, a time when doctors held the belief that mental illness could be driven out of a person purely by physical torment. One example is the fever cabinet, which is basically a light filled box designed to enclose a patient's body and drive up his or her body temperature. Conversely, there was a dowsing tub in which inmates were bound and blasted with water, and the bath of surprise, a gallows device that dropped patients suddenly into a pool of shockingly cold water to break the chain of delusional ideas and create conditions favoring sane thinking. Other contraptions include the lunatic box, a narrow enclosure that forced patients to remain confined indefinitely in a standing position. The tranquilizer chair, a seat with a built-in toilet, leg irons, and a box to cover the head, and Oh Holler and Swing, which spun its victims at up to 100 revolutions per minute. Patients who needed some exercise could also walk in the giant wooded enclosed treadmill, a human-sized hamster wheel. Ooh, I can think a lot of people who want to kidnap me and do this to me. Hopefully I jinxed it. Let's move on. While some visitors find the museum disturbing, Glore clearly believes the collection serves an important purpose. We really can't have a good appreciation of the strides we've made if we don't look at the atrocities of the past, he said in a 1995 Los Angeles Times interview. Letting the healing begin. Visitors are also treated to a peek at the artistic and compulsive sides of the mentally ill. For example, a wall features a selection of more than 500 handwritten notes that had been stuffed into a television set. Although the author's intention is unknown, he had placed the slips of paper one by one through a slot in the back, possibly as a method of transmitting his thoughts to the outside world. Nearby, a cage holds 100,000 cigarette packs, amassed by another patient who is working toward an imagined redemption scheme to win a new wheelchair. Glore served as the museum's curator for 3 decades and retired in the mid-1990s. Due to its popularity, the collection eventually moved out of the asylum and found an even bigger home. If you're ever in St. Joseph, Missouri, be sure to stop by. You'd be crazy not to. Chapter 3: Games People Play. Iraq embraces America's pastime. Baseball-starved American troops find a way to play during wartime and in the process spread the love of the game. Bats, balls, and gloves were not high on the U.S. military's list of equipment to bring to Iraq, but that didn't stop the Hawaii-based 25th Infantry Division's 2nd Brigade, with a bit of free time on their hands and a desire to get a pickup game started. The soldiers improvised as well as any stickball playing youngsters on a Brooklyn street or ever could. The setting, a soccer field in Altoon Capri, a small historically safe town north of Baghdad. The equipment, wadded paper wrapped in duct tape for a ball and an aluminum cot leg for a bat, with Humvees parked at each outfield pole and another serving as a center field wall. The troops were ready to play ball. After word of the game got back to the sister of Captain Duran Hott in West Virginia, the soldiers became better equipped for games more closely resembling traditional baseball. She felt bad. Hott nodded in 2004. We were over here serving our country and we were playing baseball with a tap ball and a cot leg, so she started Operation Home Run. Soon balls, bats, and mitts poured in from the States, and as the equipment arrived, some of the locals began taking interest in a game that differed vastly from the traditional sports of choice in Iraq: soccer and volleyball. Hott went one step further, convincing the Altoon Capri City Council to help interested teenagers form teams for an organized game. The rules were not easy to teach. Try to explain baseball to youngsters who have never been exposed to the sport. But the kids caught on quickly to the basics of throwing, hitting, and running. Mainly what the American soldiers turned coaches stressed were traits like teamwork and sportsmanship. I think baseball is a great example of democracy, Hott said. Hott served as home plate umpire and public address announcer when Nowruz, Kurdish for New Year's Day, took on Brusik Team Lightning in the game that served as the crowning moment of Operation Home Run's efforts. Hott announced, "We'd like to welcome you to the first Iraqi baseball game. This game has been played in America for over 100 years, and we want to share it with Altoon Capri and with this country." As the 25th Infantry Division's 2nd Brigade played and taught the game, more and more youngsters came out to participate. It was Hott's hope that baseball would continue to spread not only in the Altoon Capri area but also in other parts of the country. And for the record, Nowruz defeated Brusik 10-7, said Diller Fakhreddin, the winning pitcher. "I like this game. It's better than soccer." Curious about curling. If you've ever caught a curling match on TV, you might have wondered who invented that. History. Curling began in Scotland in the 1500s and was initially played with river-worn stones. Over the next century, enterprising curlers began to fit the stones with handles. Curling was a perfect fit with Canada's heavily Scottish culture and northerly climate. The Royal Montreal Curling Club began in 1807, and in 1927, Canada held its first national curling championship. Today, curling has millions of enthusiasts around the world. Canadian curlers routinely beat international competition, which provides a source of national pride. How to curl. The standard curling rink measures 146 feet by 15 feet. At the end is a 12-foot wide series of concentric rings called the house, the center of which is a button. There are 4 curlers per team. Each throws 2 rocks, shoves them, rather you don't really want to go airborne with a 44-pound granite rock, in an effort to get as close to the bottom as possible. When all 8 players have thrown 2 rocks each, the end, which is similar to a baseball inning, is concluded. A game consists of 8 or 10 ends. Curling strategy. The goal in curling is to try to knock the other team's rocks out of the house and thus out of scoring position while getting yours to hang around close to the button. After all throws have been completed, the team with the stone closest to the button scores a point for each rock that's closer to the button than the opponent's nearest rock and inside the house. Proper ice keeping. When you see curlers sweeping the ice with brooms, they aren't trying to keep the area clear of crud. The team captain determines strategy and advises the players using the brooms in the fine art of sweeping. Players can guide the stone with surprising precision by skillfully sweeping in front of it with their brooms, but they can't touch, burn that rock or any others in the process. Good curling. Thanks, you too. Curling is a game that values good sportsmanship. Curlers even call themselves burns. When a team is so far behind that it cannot win, it is considered proper sportsmanship to concede by removing gloves and shaking hands. Curling jargon. Bonspiel, a curling tournament. Curler, a curling player. Draw, a shot thrown to score. Hack, a foot brace that curlers push off from like sprinters. Hammer, the last rock of the end, advantageous. Hog line, a blue line in roughly the same place as a hockey blue line. One must let go of the rock before crossing the near hog line, and the rock must cross the far hog line, or it's hogged, removed from play. Pebble, water drops sprayed on the ice between ends, making the game more interesting. Takeout, a shot meant to knock a rock out of play. Up, whoa, off, hurry, hard. Examples of others the team captain might call to the sweepers. Wait, how hard one slides the rock. Fast facts from around the diamond. In 1999, Fernando Tatis of the St. Louis Cardinals became the only player to hit 2 grand slams in the same inning. The first major leaguer to hit a home run under the lights on was Babe Herman of the Cincinnati Reds in July 1935. Major League umpire Cal Hubbard is the only person in both the football and baseball halls of fame. Pitcher Phil Niekro holds the record for having the most wins without ever appearing in a World Series, 318. He played 24 seasons, mostly with the Braves. Eddie Matthews is the only person to play for the same franchise in 3 different cities. He played for the Braves in Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. Chuck Finley of the Indians and Angels is the only pitcher to strike out 4 batters in 1 inning more than once. He did it 3 times in 1999 and 2000. In 1882, Paul Hines became the first ball player to wear sunglasses on the field. They weren't corrective, he just didn't like having the sun in his eyes. When Cy Young started pitching, the pitcher was allowed to stand 5 feet closer to the plate than he can today. He also had to throw underhand, and fouls weren't strikes. Young didn't even wear a glove during his first few seasons. That's how old school the old school was. In a 1920 Reds-Giants game, an argument at the plate lasted so long that Reds center fielder Ed Roush lay down. When the napping Roush didn't answer to the ump's eventual call of play ball, he was given the rest of the day off to nap at will. Convicted corral. Hardened criminals, cowboy convicts, risk life and limb to complete in prison rodeos. Spectator sport. Between 1940 and 2009, hotel rooms were hard to come by on particular weekend in McAlester, Oklahoma. Population 18,000. In mid-August or on Labor Day weekend, masses of people visited the town, or more precisely, the maximum security Oklahoma State Penitentiary, to watch an odd competition. The curious watched and cheered from behind a thick razor wire taut chain link fence within prison's walls, as inmates from 10 state prisons competed in classic rodeo events such as steer wrestling and bull riding. The top crowd pleasers, though, were the prison's own signature events. In one competition, inmates attempted to grab a ribbon from between the horns of a 2,000-pound bull for a prize of $100, about 10 times what they made in a month laboring behind bars. Dressed in borrowed Western wear and often lacking real-world rodeo experience, the inmates competed in teams of 10. Only the well-behaved were eligible. Prison rodeos. Oklahoma's neighbor Texas put on the nation's first behind-the-walls rodeo at Huntsville in 1931. A lack of funding forced that rodeo to close down in 1986. The McAllister Rodeo, too, fell prey to funding gaps and shut down after the 2009 event. Angola. Visitors seeking a similar event now need to travel to Louisiana, where prison rodeos at Angola, the Louisiana State Penitentiary, began in 1965 and still run twice a year in April and in October, with exceptions for COVID 19. And we will return next time.